Well, good afternoon folks, welcome to another video. Today we're at Ibiza and we're going to be flying for British Airways, going to be flying back to Gatwick. There are a couple of things I want to accomplish in this video. Firstly, we're going to be flying the new experimental version of the fly-by-wire A320neo that has the new flight plan manager built into it. So I'm going to give that a go. And we're on stand 29 here at Ibiza. We're in version 1.3 of the freeware Ibiza by Gamers Gaming is the guy's name who developed it. It's available on FlightSim.2 and it's an update of his previous scenery that looks really quite nice. As you can see, some enhancements have been made to the scenery. Looks really quite nice, very pleased with it actually. So today we are going to start the aircraft up from cold and dark, and I'll go through my usual way of setting up a flight. I've already done the flight plan in SimBrief. Now, up until this point, importing from SimBrief directly into the MCDU hasn't worked. Lots and lots of missing waypoints. So actually I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to plan the flight and insert it the way I normally do from scratch using the plan that I have and the MCDU. So you get to see how I do that, and hopefully if I've got enough time, we'll get to see the pushback and takeoff from Ibiza. There will be a second video where we'll be landing at Gatwick, and the Gatwick landing will be into the new origami scenery, payware scenery for Gatwick. So you get to see the landing, and I will be reviewing that product, having previously reviewed the wonderful freeware scenery by MKVY. So let's get started, let's get into the aircraft and have a look and see what's what. So as I said, we're offline today, but it'll be real weather. We'll program the aircraft up and we're going to be flying from British Airways Virtual, so I shall actually be logging this flight. So let's see how it works out. As you can see, a beautiful day here at Ibiza, excellent flying conditions. So let's get into the aircraft and get going. So first thing we need to do then is to power up the aircraft. So we go to the overhead, and this is the process that I use. Two batteries go on first, and the external power switch, strobe lights to auto, get the ADR URUs going so the aircraft knows where it is. Fuel pumps go on, including the crew supply, oxygen there, ground control, seatbelt signs, no smoking sign, arm the emergency exit, and I generally put a little bit of lighting up here, and the wing light goes on. So that's the overhead. Now the aircraft is powering itself up. I put in my own squawk code. Obviously when I'm online this changes when you ask for your flight plan clearance. He'll give you a squawk code and you change it. Predictive wind shear goes on, rudder trim is neutral, park brake is set, and we can leave the cockpit door open at the moment because we're on the ground. Again, the lighting inside the cabin, inside the cockpit, is not the greatest in the world, so this is what I tend to do with the lighting. Then I go to the upper pedestal. 122.8 is set. That's all looking fine. Now as you can see there, everything looks pretty dark. So turn up the brightness. And again we do the same here. Change that to hectopascals. QNH is set. And again turn up the brightness. Those of you who might have frame rate issues or whatever, you can obviously leave the first officer's flight displays turned off or turned down, which will save you a few frames. And another thing I do is I check my throttle. I'm using SideTech yoke and throttle quad, which actually is calibrated, but let's just see. Into reverse, neutral is correct, climb, flex, yeah, okay, that looks pretty cool, that looks fine. So there we are, aircraft's powered up and we've got pretty much everything as it should be. So, let's say we're on stand 29, let's check the weather, and I use, when I'm offline, I use flight radar. So let's have a look at the weather for flight radar. So the weather is 080 at 8 knots, 080 at 8 knots wind. It's variable, but not by much. Visibility is good, 9999, scattered 013. 29 degrees, dew point's 23, and the QNH is 1018. And next thing I do is I check the current weather at Gatwick, which is our destination. Obviously this all could change, but I do it so that I can complete the flight plan with the runway and the approach, and obviously I can change that at any time. So current weather for Gatwick then, where the wind is 120 at 4 knots, and it's variable, sort of east to south. Visibility is good, 9999. There are rain showers in the vicinity. Few clouds at 2700. 19 degrees, dew point's 15, QNH 1015. Now normally, if the wind is easterly below 4 knots, they'll still use runway 26. And I'm just looking here now, and they're using runway 08 today, so it'll be runway 08. So there we are, we're all sort of powered up. Let's get to the flight plan. So here we are at the MCDU, and just to give you some details of what we're doing, today's departure will be in Palma SID, and the arrival into Gatwick today, runway will be 08 right, and it should be a VASX 1 Golf arrival, and it should stay that way with no change. Some of our weights, okay, the fuel for today's trip is going to be 7700, 7.7 tons. We've got 155 passengers and 3500 or 3.5 tons of freight on board. So, having done the flight plan and set it up in SimBrief, here's what I do. MCD menu, ATSU, AOC menu, init request, init data required, select that, and it should load the details from SimBrief, which it has. The correct flight number, departures at Ibiza, destinations Gatwick. That's all in. So next thing to do is to go back to the menu and we go into the weights and figures. So 7677 was the one required. I mean, we're pretty okay for fuel. I'm going to load a little 77 just to be on the safe side. So we select that there. That now becomes the block fuel, and we hit the load button there and hit it again. So now we've got that. Then we go to page 2 by clicking this. Okay, and here you can see the passenger figures, 155, which is all correct. So again, we hit load and hit it again. And what I do here is to take account details of the zero fuel weight, 57.4, 30.0. So 57.4, 30.0, and the payload weight 16371. The trim is 30. It pretty much always seems to be 30. It's never changed. So that's all in. Have a quick look at the takeoff weight. 6500, which is well under our maximum takeoff weight of 73,500. 1,000 kilos, get it rightly. So that's all done. Then I go to the init page, which now needs to be filled out. So it's LEIB/Echo Golf Kilo Kilo Ibiza Gatwick. That goes in there. You'll get this. All I just do is hit return and it's appeared. Our alternate today is Heathrow, Echo Golf Lima Lima, which goes in there. Flight number BA 2725 goes in there. Cost index will be 20. Many use 25, but I use 20. And our cruise altitude today is 36,000 feet, flight level 360. And we make I just make a note of the flex temp here, 51, minus 51. Although I enter it, I don't really use it. Today we're going to do a toga takeoff, which mostly I do. So the next thing to do, okay, from the init page we need to go to page 2 by clicking this button, and as you can see we need to fill out the 0 fuel weight and config, which we noted earlier, 57.430, 57.4/30.0, and our block fuel today is 7.7 tons. And we're looking to see this completed here, which it is. So now we know the details of the weather. We've got a flight plan. Select that there, select departure. Today will be runway 06 because the wind is easterly. And it's Ipama 2 Foxtrot is our departure SID. Okay, click insert. And then for Gatwick, again we know the details, which could change, but we put it in to complete the flight plan. Arrival ILS 26 left, and scroll down. Basilisk 1 Golf is the arrival, and it will be via Timber. So there it is, shown at the top. Click insert. So from Ipama we got to start to fill in the rest of the flight plan. So what we do is we scroll down here, there's Ipama, click on the button next to it, click on Airways. So from Ipama we're taking UN 856, should appear in there. Yep, that's correct. If you see airway mismatch in here, it means you've selected an airway that doesn't start at that point. And from 856 we're going to RES, R-E-S, so it's R-E-S. Click that in there. From RES we're taking airway UN 863. Goes in there. Going to Manac, Mike Alpha November Alpha Kilo. That goes in there. That's correct. From Manac we're taking Uniform Tango 183. Which goes in there. We're going then to Tirav, Tango India Romeo Alpha November. Alpha Victor, sorry, Tango India Romeo Alpha Victor Tirav goes in there. Then from Tirav it's Uniform Yankee 110. Goes in there. As you can see, these all work. If there was a mismatch anywhere between airways, you'd get it. You'd get an error coming up here. And there we're going to Rev 2, Romeo Echo Victor Tango Uniform, goes in there. And then for Rev 2 it'll be up Uniform Papa 88, goes in there, to VASUX, which is where the star starts. So VASUX goes in there. Now that's the complete flight plan, because VASUX 1 Golf is the arrival. All we do now is hit insert. Now if you get to that point where you filled all of this up and you've still got further to go, you're putting in a long flight plan, just hit the insert button and simply scroll down to the last waypoint that you put in, and again hit the side airways and carry on, and that will allow you to complete the rest of it. So now we've got the whole lot in. What we want to do is to check that it's all in and that it works. So firstly I'm going to scroll right through to check for any discontinuities, I think it used to call, anything missing. So we're just scrolling right through here. Don't know why this happens. Sometimes I scroll a few, and if I don't move the mouse it disappears, so I have to move the mouse. So as you can see, it looks like we have all the routing in. There's VASUX 1 Golf. Yep. What I may do, because it automatically puts this in, so you've got Tel2 goes to Holly, then Willow, and that's actually a hold there, then it goes to Timber. What I might do is remove Willow and Holly, sorry, not and go direct Timber then down to May, but we'll see. Now to get back to the top here, instead of having to scroll all the way back, if you hit Perf, then hit Flight Plan, there you are, it takes you to the top. So there you go, so there's the route. So now what we've got to do is have a look at it in the navigation display and check that it does okay. So there we are. Now we're in step mode, and you can see here's the start. So all we do is we hit the buttons like we did before. And we just scroll through the route, and you should do this every time to make sure there's no discrepancies, anything missing. Right, so here's the start of the Star VASUX Tel2. As you can see, it goes to Holly and then it goes left to Willow. So what I will probably do is get rid of the Willow and go straight to Timber, and that should sort it out. So let's go back. So let's go back to the MCDU. Hit the clear button. Clear Willow, hit the clear button again to clear the discontinuity, and there we are. So let's have another look. So there you go from Tel2. If I continue to scroll, Holly, Timber, and then May. We'll see closer to the time, but I may go Holly direct May depending on what happens. Normally if I'm online they'll bring me down to Holly and then I'll get vectors direct to May and then miss out Timber completely. But we'll leave it in the route for the moment and then we'll sort it out when we go. So there you are. So the next thing to do is just to make sure that we go back to the FMC, go to the Perf performance page. Now we're going to be a flat 1 takeoff, so 1 goes in there. 51, you'll remember, was the flex we saw earlier on. I put it in there. It's not really going to be of any use because we're going to do a toga takeoff. Trans altitude today is 6,000 feet, so that goes in there. So that's all complete. Next thing to do is click V1, And now we get our takeoff speeds. Click each one. There we go. So 132, 33 and 37. 132, 133 and 137. I note these down. 30 is the trim. And the other thing I note down is the clean speed. You see where it says clean 0216. Make a note of 216. That's when we're looking to clean the flaps up. So as I said, our cruise altitude today is 36,000 feet. Go back to the plan. Okay, we get a distance, 836 miles, nautical miles. So I'll put this all in. Just have a look up here. So we're going to go to 6,000 feet will be our initial climb. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here our switches go on. Check the flight director switches are on. Yes, they are. So there you go. The flight plan's been put into the MCDU with no errors or problems at all. I don't use the EFB. I will probably learn to use it as time goes on and as this mod develops more, and we'll see how that goes. So there we go, everything's in. Now what we do is we go for the before start checklist. So takeoff briefing, okay, threats, minimum equipment list, we're all sorted out there. The weather, we've got the weather, departure alternate, well there's only runway 06, so we're going off there. Single engine taxi, we're aware of that, it's runway 06, flat 1 departure. Transition altitude today is 6,000 feet. Terrain, we have terrain north of the airport, nothing really to worry about because we're going to be clear of that. Performance should be fine, plenty of runway. Sector safe altitude for this airport today, should we need to come back, it's going to be 4,000 feet. The SID is the Apama 2 Foxtrot. FMCG is set, emergencies. Okay, basically if we get a failure before 80 knots, I'll call stop. If we get a failure at or after V1, we continue into the air, bring the gear up, clean up the aircraft where necessary and do the emergency checklist and look to return. Weather's good enough for a safe return. So before start checklist comes up. Cockpit preparation is done, standard is set, park brake is set, fuel is on board, init B, which is page 2 of the init page, has been loaded and set. Flex temp is installed and set, even though we're going to do a toga takeoff, and the speeds are there. All I've got to do now is start the ACARS to log my flight for British Airways Virtual. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, one thing to do is to start the APU, which I've just done, and that's running now. So bleed is on, external power off, turn the beacon on. Let's hook up the tug. So the pushback will be a pushback with the nose to the southwest, because we taxi this way down to runway 06, which is down there. That's the tug connected. So before start checklist. Cockpit preparation is completed. Standard is set. We have 1018 there. ACARS is now running. Park brake is on. Fuel is loaded. Init B is loaded. Flex to temp. Speeds are done. Start clearance. Signs are on. Beacon is on. ATC, well, we're doing it offline today. Nose wheel steering disconnected is there. We checked. Doors and windows are closed. Flight deck door. We need to lock the flight deck door. Check. So there we are. Start clearance is received. So stand by to pushback. Okay, here we go then. So park brake release. I'm using the Pushback Helper, which is really nice. And here we go. and we're off blocks at 11:30 Zulu. For freeway scenery, this is really nice. It looks really nice. I always tend to get this slightly wrong. It's a hard thing to kind of master, but we'll do it. See how we go. By the way, this Pushback Helper is really lovely, really simple to use. It's available on flightsim.to, and I like it because you can do everything from the outside and see exactly what you're doing. The one on the EFB is great, but you do have some limitations in what you can see. So that'll do us. Okay, set the parking brake again, which you can do from here. Release the tug. Right, so parking brake is set. There it is. Now we can start the engines. So click that. We'll start number 2 first. Okay, now we're looking for a rise in N2. As you can see, it's coming up there. At about 25%, we should get a light up. And there we go, 25% light up on number 2. UGT's rising, and we're looking to see that it doesn't do a hot start. PSI is coming up nicely too. Should get up to about maybe 645, 660. But it's a hot day. There we go, 668. Cut out, the starter switch is cutting out. EGT is dropping back, the engine is recovering nicely, and it's available. So now we can start number 1. Again, we're looking at N2 rising. Again, about 25%, we should see a light up on engine 1. There we go. Up she comes. PSI is coming up, it's looking good. Oil levels are stable. I've often discovered that engine 1 tends to go a little bit higher than engine 2. So there we go, we got a couple of degrees hotter, but it's dropping back. A cutout switch has gone in, and engine 1 is available. So set max auto brakes, flap 1, arm the speed brake, close that down. Make sure the door is locked. It is. Park brake is set. Have a last check. Yep, everything looks good. Now what we do now is we do flight control check. So ailerons left, neutral, right, neutral, elevators up, neutral, down, neutral, and follow me through on the rudders. To the right, neutral, and to the left, neutral. So that's flight control check done. I generally do that while we're stationary, because obviously you start moving your controls while you're taxiing. Unlike in the real aircraft, you can end up going all over the place. So back to the engine spot. So having done that, we go to the overhead. Since we have the engines running, turn off the APU, Set taxi lights on. Everything looks good there, no problems. So after start checks, ground crew clearance we've received, anti-ice is not required, flaps are set, flap 1, APU is off and it'll be running down, Y pump status is okay and the ECAM status is checked, and now as you can see we get the configuration come up. So we takeoff config, we hit that and we should get normal, yes we do. So takeoff config is normal, and I'll ding the passengers and the cabin crew when we get closer to the runway. So after start clearances to check, we do the before takeoff checklist to the line. Flight controls are checked, TCAS, the TCAS is on standby and we have the code selected. Load sheet is checked, trims 30% is checked. Departure briefing, well it's a standard takeoff from runway 06. Ipama to Foxtrot climbing to 6,000 initially. Takeoff data is set, flaps are set, ECAM memo is checked. All we've got to do is ding the cabin crew and that's down to the line. So we release the parking brake and begin our taxi to the runway. So our brakes are released. Here we go. So as I said, just to remind you, I'm using the experimental version, and this is the first time I've used it or loaded it. Brake check. Yeah, brakes work. It's a nice scenery this, for a freeware it's very nice. I know Justin do a payware and I've had a look at the screenshots and it looks fine, but quite happy with this for the moment. So as you can see, the cockpit still looks a bit dark, so let's turn these lights up a bit. Okay, it's a little better. Okay, let's ding the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Not crazy about an American voice on a British aircraft, but there we go. Can't have everything, can we? So the cabin is ready. So we hold short just here to complete the checks. So go to the overhead, strobe goes on, all the lights go on, ding the crew, turn on the transponder, and we'll also turn on the weather radar, although the weather looks perfectly okay. Park brake is off. Okay, so before takeoff checklist below the line. Takeoff runway is there, cabin crew signal has been given, PAX, we'll do a PAX on takeoff, and the lights are on. Here we go. So lining up runway 06. So just going over the emergencies again. We get a failure before V1, our call stop, and we go straight into reverse. Anything after V1, we'll get the aircraft into the air, assess the failure, and look to return. So we're all lined up, everything ready. 11:44 will be our takeoff time. Just give the clock a few minutes, a few seconds to hit 44. Okay, we're ready. Takeoff. Here we go. Two engines, they're stable, brakes release. SRS, runway, airspeed's alive. .100 knots, check. V1, rotate. Positive rate, gear comes up. Let's turn on course. Looking good. Okay, we turn the autopilot 1. Okay, got a thrust climb. This is where I check the position. Yeah, that's in the climb detent. Okay, so we were looking for 216. Okay, passing 210, so that's about now. So flaps up. Put this onto 20 so we can see our SID. Looking nice out there. Coming up on 6,000 for some reason. The speed is going crazy. Got a feeling that might be control calibration. I need to look at that. So we'll let the speed settle back. Very nice view of the island there and the bays as we continue our turn north. So coming up towards 502 now, we start the climb. We're going to go up to 36,000. So let's do this. $36,000 set. Click the manage road, start the climb. Thrust climb, climb set. Now as we pass 6,000 feet, which is transition altitude, now we set the standard. Standard is set and on the way. So after takeoff checklist, landing gear is up and off, ECAM is checked, no blue, no problems. Standard is set on cross-checked on both. So the after takeoff checklist complete. So we're looking for a steady climb, and next check will be at 10,000 feet, where we'd expect to see this go up, and we will turn the landing lights off. Once again, nice view of the island of Ibiza there as we head north and climb up. Passing 8,000 feet. So while I've got the minute to tell you, obviously I'm not a real world pilot. I'm learning all the time. I've been flying the computer for many years. Spent a couple of years now getting to know the Airbus, and obviously spent the last year trying to get to know this one. I make mistakes, I do things wrong, I do things that probably are different to what others do. I make no apologies for that. I try to be as realistic as possible, and very often, like many, I fail in my attempts to do so. But I hope that you've enjoyed that little walkthrough about how I do this. And as I said, I'm still learning thanks to some marvellous, great pilot friends of mine that do help. So passing 10,000 feet, there we go, that's gone up. So go to the overhead and turn off the landing lights. Leave the seatbelt signs for the moment. The other thing I do after we pass 10,000 feet is I set this onto the fuel page. Now what used to happen quite a lot in the previous version of this aircraft is I used to get fuel imbalances all the time. Thankfully, look, the fuel is nicely balanced. 6.8 tons, and we've got the same amount in each tank. So as you can see, we're now, the aircraft's pulled itself up to the right speed, and we should get an increase, and now we should start climbing up to 36,000. So there we go, folks, as Ibiza begins to disappear away to the south, passing level 120 going up to 360. I'll call it a day for now. Hope that's helpful. Join me later for the landing into Gatwick, where we get our first look at Origami payware Gatwick as I see it, and then after we park up and file everything, I'll continue the second part of that video and we'll do a review of the scenery. So thank you for joining me again. Hope you've enjoyed this, and hope to see you on the next part of the trip. This is Lee saying bye for now.